day in, day out, and make huge savings for this country, more especially from the committee of my brother and friend, Matthews Oregide, which has to do with public accounts. People don't appreciate because the money is not physical as far as they are concerned, but we know it's a saving to the government. So when you look at this particular bill, it's an intended intervention of the Senate to make sufficient saving and then begin to hold people to account. Mr. President, you have traveled all over the world. You have seen how public infrastructures are managed. Clean environment, clean houses, good roads, you know, all rendering services to the people. But when everyone comes to the parliament and asks for money for office maintenance, office equipment maintenance, and at the end of the day, we see nothing. Rather, we see a decaying infrastructure going on. When we invest heavily on the maintenance of our roads, and yet they remain unpassable throughout the year, then it means we must put something somewhere where some people can be held to account. And I think that this is a very nice move. The function, the primary function of Parliament is to ensure prudent use of the resources of the taxpayer. And if that is the function, then it means any attempt by anybody to ensure that people are held to account in the management of the resources of this country. President.
Thank you, Senator Nara. Senator Mamadou Bima, please.
My highly respected distinguished colleagues, I rise to support and to second the motion raised by our colleague, the Dan Amar of Kayama. First of all, I would like to highlight the importance of infrastructural development to national development. In this country, we have a lot of ministries and agencies that are involved in infrastructural development. There's no proper coordination, there's no synergy between these agencies. So the importance of this bill is to establish the National Integrated Infrastructure Coordinating Commission, so that there will be proper coordinating body between the various.
I'll take, in the interest of fairness, after I know.
And Senator Elon, I rise to second this very, very important bill presented by Senator, who's of course the Amal of Kayama, Taban, just last Saturday. Let me congratulate him once again. And of course, Mr. President, everybody knows the importance of coordinating infrastructure development in this country. Just the business facilitation and the coordinating. Because of course, if the infrastructure are not good, then there's no development, no good development. Let me just give example of road sector. I know for the past 25 years, Mr. President, we have been struggling, this National Assembly has been struggling to have an umbrella coordinating both the construction, rehabilitation and maintenance of the federal roads in this country. But because of selfish interest of some individuals, the things up to now could not see the light of day. That's Federal Road Authority and also Federal Road Fund Authority. So, Mr. President, unless we have these coordinating agencies, definitely we are not going anywhere. So if you look at other sectors, it's the same thing. Because assuming we have this Federal Road Authority and under which of course the Federal Road Fund, we put all our construction, road construction, and the construction will continue, accordingly. So, but unless we have the same thing in other agencies, we cannot proceed. So therefore, Mr. President, I'm really supporting this very important bill, at least for the second read, passage of the second read of the bill. I really second it. Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Senator Bakia. I will take Senator Suswan and then I'll put the question.
My name, Dr. Gabriel Suswan, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, your fairness is not in doubt. And I pray to God that as you move higher, you will be very fair to the people of Delta across party lines, as you are doing here. Mr. President, I rise to give my voice in support that this bill should be read the second time. Mr. President, the problem that we're having in this country is not new. Between the 70s and the 80s, most countries in Latin America had this similar situation. What did they do? Mr. President, they decided that for you to have proper coordinated infrastructure in their countries, that they needed legal framework that could protect potential investors who were not necessarily the indigenous. And so they engaged in what we are trying to do here today. They created, especially if we look at the situation in Argentina, Brazil, and a few other Latin American countries. Mr. President, they created legal framework. And so they were able to invite investors who hitherto were afraid that if they put their money, they might not be able to realize anything from it. Now, we have very serious infrastructural deficit in this country. And Mr. President, the difference between a developing and a developed country is basically infrastructure. Because if we go to countries that are termed developed, infrastructure is taken for granted. And so if we want to move to the stage of a developed country from developing, Mr. President, we need to be serious as to what we are doing. So I support the contributions of my colleagues here, that this legal framework, this coordinating commission that we intend to put together, it is very important because we now know where to put, rather who to hold accountable when it comes to issues of infrastructure. Also, Mr. President, I think that this bill must be given all the support that it deserves so that we can now begin to take infrastructure in this country for granted, just like any developed country. Otherwise, this appropriation that we do every year in and out have not given us the desired result. People just put money, we just allocate money here. At the end of the year, they say their contracts have been awarded. You don't see anything meaningful. But if we have this kind of commission put together, we now know that it's okay for you to integrate and coordinate properly infrastructure in this country. We will know where to go and who to hold accountable. And so, Mr. President, I want to join my colleagues once again in giving total support that this bill be read the second time, Mr. President. I so submit.
Is there anybody who is opposed to this bill? Opposed? Okay, Senator Namani, please.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Senate President. My name is Chimaro Kenamai. I represent Enugu East Senatorial Zone. This is another attempt to put another bleed on national resource. This is to create an organization that is so big that is going to be involved in territorial battles. You have due process, you have project implementation, you have Ministry of Works. This is just another attempt to create a bureaucracy that will continue to put a bleed on the taxpayers and the national resource. I oppose it, and I oppose it. Thank you.
I put the question. And do again say nay? The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the facilitation and coordination of public infrastructure development to ensure that infrastructure development in the country is given priority in planning, approval, and implementation, to ensure that the development goals of the country are promoted through infrastructure development, to broaden the scope of funding for infrastructure development, and to improve the management of such infrastructure during all life cycle phases, including planning, approval, implementation, and operations, and to provide for matters incidental thereto. 2022, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the facilitation and coordination of public infrastructure development, to ensure that infrastructure development in the country is given priority in planning, approval, and implementation, to ensure that the development goals of the country are promoted through infrastructure development, to broaden the scope of funding for infrastructural development, and to improve the management of such infrastructure during all life cycle phases, including planning, approval, implementation, and operations, and to provide for matters incidental thereto. 2022. Second reading taken. The bill is referred to the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs and to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission Act, Cap N117, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004 Amendment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 15th October 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Uche Lilian Ekwenife to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Uche Lilian Ekwenife, Iom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Uche Lilian Ekwenife, Iom. I represent Anambra Central. I am from Anambra State. Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. President, I move that the bill for an act to amend the provisions of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission Act, Chapter N117, 2004, to make provisions for the protection of micro, small, and medium enterprises from unfair competition and for other matters related. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is a very simple but an important amendment to the Act of Parliament establishing the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. Mr. President, you will recall that this bill was first read on October 15, 2020. The bill seeks to amend the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission Act to protect our micro, small, and medium enterprises from unfair competition by foreign individuals or enterprises, in particular, those enterprises that do not call for specialized expertise. It has also made provision for minimum foreign capital investment thresholds for foreigners willing to participate in some other areas of businesses with Nigerians. Mr. President, unemployment rate in Nigeria increased from 23.1% in Q3 of 2018 to 27.1% in Q2 of 2020 and has moved to 35% as at the end of 2021. Similarly, the poverty rate in Nigeria has since increased to 42.8% as at 18 November 2021. More so, it is logical to add households, small and medium enterprises, for survival. Consequently, this critical sector of our nation's economy from unfair competition. Investment Act imposes restrictions on foreign ownership of or entry into certain businesses' activities, and make provision for minimum foreign capital investment thresholds in their countries. Looking at the legal framework and policy documents of African Continental Free Trade Zone, to which Nigeria is signatory to, it is imperative that we should be deliberate in legislations relating to our trade and commerce. As a matter of policy and in liaison with various government agencies, we must begin to review our laws in such a manner that should place our country at an advantageous position within the world's largest single market that African Continental Free Trade Area has become. That is what this bill seeks to address. Mr. President, of the 5 instruments that will govern African Continental Free Trade Area, the 3 most critical ones are, number 1, rules of origin, negotiating forum, and monitoring and elimination of non-tariff barriers. With the fact that operationalization of AFCA commenced on January 1, 2021, against the original deadline of July 2020, which could not be actualized because of COVID-19, it has become most compelling that the passage of this amendment be fast-tracked. Structure of the bill, clauses 2 and 3 seek to strengthen the composition of the Council of the agency. Clause 4 deals with the real essence of the amendment by highlighting the flaws in the Principal Act. In the Principal Act, Section 17 provides that a non-Nigerian may invest and participate in the operation of any enterprise in Nigeria except those on the negative list, which equally applies to Nigerians as interpreted in Section 31 of the Principal Act. Mr. President, by the provision of Section 17 of the Principal Act, if not amended as canvassed here, then a foreigner who chooses can practically go into any form of business in Nigeria, including retail sales of garri, suya, or akara, without any form of restrictions or control. And this is not obtainable in any country, especially African countries. Mr. President, Clause 5 seeks to enforce compliance with due process in business registration processes in our country. Clauses 6 and 7 deal with some aspects of responsibilities of all tiers of governments of the Federation. That's involvement of all tiers of government, local government, state, and federal. In conclusion, Mr. President and my colleagues, the purpose of this amendment has been clearly defined here, and the outline is devoid of complexities. The provisions are consistent with the mandate of Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, and in particular, this bill does not in any way add financial burdens on government. Rather, in a short run, it is going to yield revenue to governments. In addition, the proposed amendments as presented here will go a long way in protecting Nigerian-owned businesses, micro, small, and medium enterprises, and help boost local entrepreneurship. Finally, the amendment would help mitigate the high unemployment rate in our country. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I want you to view the main objectives of this bill as being laudable and worthy of your support. I crave your indulgence to please support this very important amendment. I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sadi, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Ali Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Mr. President, I want to second and support that this bill be read the second time. And in doing so, Mr. President, let me commend distinguished Senator Uche Lilian for this very timely intervention through this bill. As it is, many times when we go into international treaties, agreements, and the like, such as we have with AFTA, we do not take time to look at the consequence of our action by such agreement such that we'll come back home to look at our laws and see areas where we need to make intervention. Distinguished Senator Lillian has just done that, and I want to congratulate her on this. And I want to say that obviously, if we don't put our house in order, definitely Nigeria will become a dumping ground. A dumping ground not just from the international arena, what you call overseas, but even within our own continental Africa. And I think it is time, given the huge human resources we have, the abundant natural resources we have, that we begin to put our acts in order, put our house in order through instruments like this. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it might interest you to know that there are many popular delicacies that Nigerians are used to. And internationally, people are already going to create the fake ones and importing them into Nigeria. The case of pomo that we talk about, for example, there was a toxic pomo that was brought simply because people felt pomo is a delicacy in Nigeria. And I think these are some of the issues that we just have to take a very serious look at. If you look at the economy, the small, medium, micro enterprises that you see our Nigerian citizens, participating on in the streets and all around the country, many of them using that same little or micro enterprise to sponsor their children through university education. I think, Mr. President, will be committing the greatest suicide if we allow a situation where our citizens are now being made to compete unfairly, for that matter, in these areas that have become their specialty. Like it is being said, what is Nigerian is Nigerian. And I think until we commoditize it and perhaps export it out through known standards, I think it should be protected so that our people can truly benefit from what they have done. In international trade, for example, there is issue of geographical indication, which clearly means if, for example, there is a food that is being produced in a part of the country, the ingredients used to prepare it is so specific and so unique, that area should be protected. And I think the case of, for example, Ofada rice comes to mind. When you say Ofada rice, it's Ofada rice. It's Nigerian. And anybody who is trying to mimic that should be made to do that through some due process. So I think amending this Promotion Act, as suggested by distinguished Senator Lillian, will help to address some of these issues. And of course, as we see the implementation of this continental trade agreement, Nigerians should begin to be empowered to take advantage rather than to be disadvantaged. With these few comments, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge my colleagues to support that this bill be read the second time.
Thank you very much. Senator Barajibri.
Sorry, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
That's right? Okay.
Mr. President, I stand to support this bill and also commend the sponsor of the bill. Mr. President, we're all aware that the fundamentals, the foundation of every economy, particularly the economies of the third world, is based and is being moved by the SMEs. The larger ones are very few, but the SMEs are the ones that are common. You find them everywhere. And what do we need to do? We need to protect them from unfair competition. We need to protect them so that they cannot be killed. Because when you kill SMEs, you kill the economy of Nigeria. You find that everywhere you go to Wuse, you go to everywhere, you find SMEs all over. They are the greatest, they are the highest number of employers of labor. So, we need to ensure that our business environment protects them. Therefore, our laws should be tailored in a manner that will create protection for them. We should make sure that we rejig our laws so that our laws will go in tandem with what is applicable in the international arena, so that we can give protection to them. Even not even in Nigeria, even developed economies. Those that the companies, the entities that really matter, that are doing well, that create jobs are the SMEs. Therefore, any law that will protect them should be welcome. That's why I stand to support this bill. When the bill goes to the next stage of processing, let us look at what is happening in other nations, in other economies of the world. What are the laws that have been applied to promote and to protect SMEs? We can invent the wheel. This is welcome. What the bill is trying to do is welcome. But let's expand the horizon to make sure that we look at what is happening elsewhere, so as to bring all those things in time to go in tandem with what will create a fair environment for SMEs in this country. I therefore urge my colleagues to support this bill, because when you support this bill, the bill that is talking about creating a fair economic environment for SMEs is a bill that is crafted to help the entire economy of this country. I say so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'll put the question. Those in favor that the bill be now raised a second time say aye. Against say nay. The ayes